Welcome back to the news. Let's get stuck in. So, we can expect 6 weeks between meaningful Starfield updates because Bethesda are trying to respond to the whole situation with hotfixes and a plan, including some pretty damn much requested features. Another thing improving behind the scenes apparently is ZeniMax Workers United, who are trying to get things going good there. Elsewhere, we've got a viral rumor to deal with about Fntastic, of course, the ex-developers of the day before, because they, supposedly are closed. And also, the indie devs at New Blood Interactive are kind of showing everybody how it's done when it comes to looking after their team. And you can look after our team with today's sponsor. Alright, let's save some money, access more content, and be more secure using nordvpn.com/Bellular News, where, at that link, you can get their Christmas deal where you'll get 4 months for free with a 2-year plan, and they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. Having a VPN is just awesome for you're using the web and you actually want things to be secure, so you're not being snooped on by, say, your internet service provider. As you know, recently, I was using NordVPN when I was traveling, where the tickets for things like cars and flights are all optimized by the providers based on regional demand and a whole bunch of other things. And that basically means that if you clear your cookies and use Nord to shop around from different regions, you can actually save a whole load of money by exploiting those regional price differences. I was actually at the US twice recently, most recently for BlizzCon, and yeah, you're damn right, I did my sweep of things using Nord. Of course, when I was away, it was also handy VPNing back home to avoid triggering site security. Now, of course, as a VPN, they keep you private, they stop your ISP from snooping about what you're doing, they've got fantastic things like their threat protection service and new features like MeshNet, and it's all in their app and browser extension that are super easy to use, and of course, you get 4 bonus months for free with a 2-year plan at my link down below, nordvpn.com/Bellular News. Be sure to click that link to support our team. With that said, let's roll. Okay, Starfield then. Obviously, it's a game that had a lukewarm reception, and I think that reception has actually got cooler as time has went on. Most recently on YouTube, you've probably seen it yourself. There's a Nakey Jake video. He makes hilarious stuff, also super well thought out. He did a video on how outdated the design of Starfield is. It's a very solid video, and of course, it's a video that couldn't explode like it did if it wasn't tapping into a humongous, I suppose, wellspring of public opinion, which it absolutely has. Now, when we look at the game itself, you've got 2 resolutions of problem. On the biggest resolution, fundamentals of the game do not really deliver the fantasy, right? The fantasy that this game would kind of ideally deliver in a way that people expect. As an example, you're playing Skyrim, you roam about the place, you have adventures, that's all good. On Starfield, you basically teleport between little hubs and little, sections of places. And yeah, it's kind of that space adventure fantasy, but there's so many roadblocks here, there, and everywhere that it doesn't really feel like it gives players that continuous immersion of just being, out in the plains, out in the wilds. That's that. The next resolution of problem, though, is when you zoom in and you basically find that the devil is in the details and there are loads of problems absolutely everywhere, because while this is one of the less buggy, maybe the least buggy launches that Bethesda have had, it obviously still is a Bethesda game, so yeah, it's got tons of bugs. Now, how do we fix these 2 problems? Problem number 1 basically means they need to re-engineer the game. That is traditionally quite simply not the sort of thing that Bethesda do. I mean, they only re-engineer stuff when they absolutely need it in order to create new content. I think it's pretty clear that putting a large engineering effort into the sorts of things that are just kind of like day-to-day, second-to-second gameplay, player quality of life, those are kind of lost in the journey for just going big. Right, so we got that. Those smaller problems, though, well, that's meant plenty of small updates. Now, sometimes this can be a bit weird. You have so many people who all have their own problems that they've, reported, and then they see even the recent, say, hotfixes, where, well, there was a crashing bug on the Xbox and Microsoft Store, a fix for weapon cases, and a fix for a bug that attached asteroids to ships. In the eyes of the community, this was not a lot of fixes, and materially, it certainly wasn't either. So we've got a pace that feels slow when it comes to fixing problems. Then people look at Baldur's Gate 3, which is on its 5th patch now, but I think more importantly, you maybe think 5, that's not a massive amount, but the point is, there have been thousands and thousands and thousands of bug fixes in these patches, which, again, if you're Bethesda, does look quite rough. So what they did to deal with all of this is go to Reddit, which is a good sign because it shows going to an external community, one that they know obviously is having quite a lot of fun at their expense. Now, they start off by saying this whole pet asteroid update is, it's not like meant to be a big update, they just wanted to fix it before the Christmas break, and they do have another patch that is coming out. They basically go through some details as well as what we can expect. And overall, fairly decent, but I do just wonder how screwed the fundamentals are. So here's what's coming. So FSR and XESS, which will be going alongside the existing DLSS update, so that's reasonable. Quest bug solutions, including a newly built system to mean no save rollback from existing playthroughs. New features, city maps, city goddamn maps. Now, if you've played this game as I have, yeah, it inexplicably shipped without city maps, which is insane. So there's that. There's also mod support, which is going to be fairly massive, because yeah, basically this is the kind of thing where, honestly, I think modders may be able to kind of save this game. I'm not exactly sure how, but basically there's so many planets, there's technically so much canvas in this game. It's just what's on that canvas is particularly weak, even though the canvas itself is still all sort of Bethesda game canvas, the sort of thing that can be modded up for people to enjoy. And also new travel options. Now those new travel options are the more interesting thing to me. And there's a few different ways where they can go with this one, because taking a player from here to over there, regardless of the difference in between, basically, you can do that very easily. It's just a matter of like how much fast travel do you want to skip. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there, because if you wanted to go from one place on one planet to where your quest is on another planet, currently, there are like different ways of doing it, but for a lot of people, you know, they leave in their ship and they go over there and they go over there, loading screen, loading screen, loading screen, loading screen, or just one loading screen, taking you straight to your destination. That would be a pretty hardcore response, but it would quite remove the pain point. However, in removing the pain point, it would also remove so much of the scale of the universe. Well, I suppose if you had to pull that scale off via infinite loading screens in a way where the player just feels that their gameplay is always disrupted, they basically, they made, I think, core mistakes when it came to this game. I think there was just some things where they decided, you know what? The fantasy matters more than the implementation. We're going to focus on the scale, we're going to focus on the fantasy, but evidently that has led to playability issues, which mean that people essentially don't get, I would say anyway, as immersed in the game. And the thing about a lot of these Bethesda games is they do not operate on writing and characters. You want Obsidian for that. Bethesda operates on vibes. And I think the core problem they've had is those vibes are basically just being disrupted by all of the vast playability issues that the game has. Or even just some bizarre things where like the whole settlement outpost thing just kind of feels bolted on. You don't really need to engage with it. The way the ammunition system, is, the weirdness of the crafting system. It's just one of those games that doesn't necessarily feel all that well thought out as an overall experience. And certainly then when it comes to the authored content, they are honestly real weak. As an example, I've seen loads of publications as well, say that, basically there's a side quest on this sort of paradise world, and a colony ship arrives. Now, this colony ship has been, it's been going for hundreds of years, there's been multiple generations on it, it's got older technology, and it's a really strong premise. But almost like the worst of some Star Trek, it's a strong premise that is just mangled and boring in execution. So if that is some of the better content they've got, I do kind of worry. So I did a few other side missions, did some main mission stuff, and the whole world just kind of felt so goddamn bland that I didn't really care. But the weird thing about it is, you see when you walk around an outpost, you take a look at what's written in the whiteboards, you look at the chunks, there's a lot of character in the game. It's just a great example of they didn't pull together, I think, a compelling world. And as much as I think I started talking about this with a degree of hope, I actually think Starfield is screwed. Yeah, no, I sort of feel it's screwed in that way that Fallout 4 is a bit screwed. Now, Fallout 4 did get more content, but like it was the weaker of the Fallouts, absolutely. Yeah, no, I actually think this game is so mid, it's probably not worth bothering about. And in fact, that is what one of the very well-known modders of Skyrim said. I think fundamentally, right, there's this phrase, I think it's one that we can all do a thinking about. It's the idea that it's not necessarily how hard you row, but it's what boat you're in, which is basically just saying that yes, there is the sort of realm of your physical control in the situation that you're in right now, but sometimes it's the situation that you're in that is kind of going to dictate your results, not how hard you work. So sometimes what we got to do is step back and think about the bigger picture, and if we're going in the right way, if we are, so to speak, in the right boat. And I suppose as I think about Starfield, it's the wrong boat. I don't actually think this can be fixed up that much. Personally, I don't know. Maybe they can pull it off, but to be honest with you, this game is all of Bethesda's weaknesses and essentially none of their strengths, and I am still utterly bewildered how they can basically roll out the same very tired game design. I've got to be real with you, like, to me, Skyrim was tired in 2011, and I felt that because I played Oblivion. You know, I think Oblivion's a better game than Skyrim, to be honest with you. It's as if they haven't really updated that much since 2006. And yes, they've done things like, you can build an outpost now. That's a neat thing to do, but it's not the, like, essential fantasy, the essential game. And basically, they haven't got that bit right. And in fairness, doing that at the scale that they're trying to achieve with this game is bloody hard. Obviously, the scale of No Man's Sky is so much larger. And even now, with all of his updates, that is a game where, you know, if you approach it as a sandbox, you can have a great time, but it can struggle still for many people. You look at Mass Effect Andromeda. Did you actually know Mass Effect Andromeda was supposed to, structurally, be remarkably similar to Starfield? Obviously, though, in the development process of Mass Effect Andromeda, that whole plan to have, you know, hundreds of procedurally generated worlds or whatever they were going to go for, it was something like that, massive proc gen, that fell by the wayside. And obviously that's a game that was rebooted and rebooted. They just haven't solved the problem. They haven't solved the problem, but they applied the standard Bethesda video game, basically, that's been mildly iterated on at best since 2006. Because I feel like the last great leap that they truly did was moving from Morrowind to Oblivion. Oblivion to Fallout, Fallout to Skyrim. Those feel like iterations of a design, right? Done with better fidelity and sometimes with slightly better combat, even though they've always kind of sucked at that. Yeah, I don't know, a bit strange. I felt decently positive going into today's story. I'm almost wondering if it would be more pragmatic to say, screw it, Starfield's a wash, next Elder Scrolls game, let's try to learn from this. I do not see this being worth the opportunity cost other than making mod tools and giving it to modders, because the whole situation is frankly so mid, nobody cares. Yeah, wow. I didn't expect to go all doomer, but here we are. Anyway, we do actually have some good news coming out of Bethesda, which is a double victory for the Bethesda Quality Assurance Union. So, ZeniMax at Workers United represents 300 QA staff at Bethesda. So this group was voluntarily recognized by Microsoft earlier on this year. Now, Microsoft had made a sort of union pledge. A lot of this seems to also be sort of in part to get the parent union, which is the Communication Workers of America, on board with the merger. Anyway, these talks have basically been ongoing since April. In the last 2 weeks, they've single-handedly shown the game industry that people can actually have a voice, because there are two separate wins that they've got from Microsoft. Win number one, 23 of 77 previously contracted workers will be getting full-time Microsoft jobs with a 22% pay bump, while the rest then are getting temporary official employments, which does importantly include sick days, holidays, and pay bumps, which is honestly, for those workers, pretty damn sick, and for us as people who play games, also pretty damn sick, because guess what? It's good when bugs get found. Now, secondly, the CWA have managed to reach an agreement with Microsoft on how AI will interact with QA staff at Bethesda, confirming it will have to follow their internal AI principles, which apparently means it obligates Microsoft to inform the union anytime its implementation of AI or other automation, quote, may impact work performed by union members. How much will that matter? It's kind of hard to say. I mean, if Microsoft wants to do something with AI that will impact those workers, they're going to do do it. The union may find out. The union may try to do a strike action, but I mean, let's be real, from Microsoft's perspective, they'll probably just say, yeah, sorry, but the literal game has changed. This technology is a part of how we work now, and that is that, I imagine. But anyway, this is pretty damn good news, especially, I would say, for the games industry in America, which, is a place where this sort of thing doesn't tend to happen. Now then, Fntastic. The day before, what is going on? We touched on this when we did our video on it, but since we mentioned it, man, this story has went absolutely viral, and one of the prevailing social media claims is around Fntastic and the day before trying to hide the existing company and simply go back to an older name, with that name being 8 Points. So, if you've seen 8 Points go around the internet, that's what we're talking about now. As for where this comes from, right, the evidence was the co-op adventure game, The Wild 8, and this is all happening during the chaos of the day before's launch. It changed its developer and association on the Steam backend, and at first glance it does look quite strange. It looks like Fntastic trying to hide something. We see changed developer, changed associations. Fntastic, 8 Points. Okay, what does that actually mean? Well, the reality here is a little bit more complex. Obviously, we can search for things on Steam, and when you do a Fntastic search, you can see what is here. Now, if you search for the publisher of that game, right? If you search for that publisher, which is called Hype Train Digital, and the game name elsewhere on the internet, you get, as an example, an article like this one from Rock Paper Shotgun. The Wild 8 left for dead dozen cold shoulder. Now, this is an article that discusses the ownership from Fntastic to the publisher, and this is actually captured in the FAQ from the failed Fntastic game, Dirty Dozen. I'll just read a bit of it. We sold the Wild 8 to our publisher. This decision was very hard for us because our team was hoping to always evolve the game. The Wild 8 is our debut project. It brought us first success and valuable experience, but nevertheless, because of internal conflict with partners within the company, does sound a little bit sus, we had to sell the project to the publisher, who is now successfully supporting the project. So, the answer to this is Fntastic did develop the Wild 8, and that's why they were credited for making it as a developer. And that actually persisted. That developer accreditation persisted post-sale of the game to Hype Train Digital. It likely didn't hurt Hype Train Digital when people were searching for the developer of the most wishlisted game on Steam to maybe take a look at their back catalogue, where they could see games like Prop Night and Wild 8. That connection, though, has started to bring in some bad reviews. Let's take a look at this screenshot. Recent reviews, 65, very negative. Yeah, quite obviously, they're getting a little bit of splashback from this situation. And since Fntastic aren't actually the developers of the game, that's evidently why you can now see 8 Points instead of Fntastic, because the people who actually own this game, Hype Train Digital, swapped it over because they were likely tired of getting a whole bunch of negative reviews, basically, for a game that they did not make. They're getting somebody else's protest reviews. And, well, Eurogamer also just asked them. They said Fntastic was the original developer of the game, but after its release in early access, the developers decided to discontinue work because of internal reasons. Hype Train took over development independently. All business relationships with Fntastic were terminated in 2017. So, all rather straightforward. Fntastic are still Fntastic until the company literally closes, which it does actually seem to do. Now, I have seen some rumors. I have been linked to some things that have certainly seemed spicy and then have been deleted. So that will need to be followed up. Anyway, at least this viral theory about what's going on, the developer simply changing names and hoping for the best, that is something that so far has been confirmed to not be the case. And there is something that is also not normal. It's really good, actually. So, boomer shooters. We love boomer shooters. Dusk is an awesome game. I really recommend you try it, and now's a great time because New Blood, the developer, have just released Dusk HD. It's a full overhaul of the title, but they've also snuck in an extra benefit for their staff. This is added to the patch notes, right? What's happened is best described by reading the post that they made. Ben Zombie Moyer has been rewriting Dusk from the ground up for nearly 5 years, and David Grauman Bonin has remade every single visual asset from Dusk by hand over the last 2 years, as well as creating all new ones to add to Dusk HD. And unbeknownst to them, all profits from Dusk for the month of December 2023 will be split between David and Ben. Don't spend it all at once, lads. So while this is certainly not a massive story, it is a nice one, it is a heartwarming one. obviously when we are so very used to having thousands and thousands and thousands of layoffs across the games industry this year. So go check out Dusk. Dusk is really goddamn fun. In fact, whenever I got a new monitor with a 240Hz refresh rate, the very first thing I did was I booted up Dusk. Man, that was a pretty damn buttery situation. Okay, speaking of buttery situations, check out this video next. If you want to support the show, you can check out today's sponsor. And with that said, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next one.